This is the rough location of Glacier Bay National Park. Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve is roughly the size of the state of Connecticut. It was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1992. This is a typical cruise ship route in Glacier Bay. We'll be visiting two tidewater glaciers, Margerie Glacier and Lamplugh Glacier, and they are located all the way up to the head of the bay. There are no roads leading into Glacier Bay National Park. The only way to reach it is by air or water. The number of vessels per day is limited in the summer months. Only 2 cruise ships, 3 tour boats, 6 charter vessels, and 25 private vessels are allowed per day into the bay. And the giant tidewater glaciers are viewable only from the deck of a vessel. So what is a glacier? A few main points I learned was, a glacier is born high in the mountains where there's only snowfalls. This snow doesn't melt away each year. Year after year, the snowflakes pile up and the sheer weight of this accumulation compresses the snow beneath. The fluffy flakes first change to granular snow and eventually morph into solid ice, which can take several decades or thousands of years. Air trapped between the snowflakes is also frozen into ice at immense pressure. Eventually, the weight of the ice is too much for the mountains to hold against gravity, and the ice detached from the rock wall and slide downward, slowly flowing into the valley like a river of ice. Now that the ice is moving, it's a glacier. There are different types of glaciers based on their characteristics. It may seem that all glaciers look alike, but actually, each is unique, depending on the conditions and how they are formed. Most are high in the mountains, but a few notable glaciers extend all the way to the sea, and these are the tidewater glaciers, which most Glacier Bay visitors are interested in. Here's a map of glaciers with a water terminus or snout in Glacier Bay National Park. And again, here's Margerie and Lamplugh Glaciers, the 2 tidewater glaciers we are visiting. Do you know how Glacier Bay looked like about 250 years ago? Look at the current map of Glacier Bay again. The location of today's visitor center is on our right as we enter from Icy Strait, and we can use this as a reference point for map comparisons. And this is a simplification of today's map. But in the late 1600s, there was no Glacier Bay, only a broad valley with a glacier moving down it. The native Tlingit people lived in the lower bay. The landscape then was a grassy valley with streams and scattered forests. Food and resources were abundant, and in the distance sat a looming giant glacier. By 1750, advancing glaciers during the Little Ice Age forced the Tlingit people to abandon their homes. The glacier has reached its maximum extent, overwhelming the Tlingit homeland and extending a snout into Icy Strait. Glacier Bay was a single humongous tidewater glacier. The Little Ice Age came and went quickly by geologic measures. By 1879, the glacier had retreated 45 miles, or 72 kilometers into the bay, and the ocean fills the valley quickly, creating Glacier Bay. Today, we have to travel 65 miles up Glacier Bay to view tidewater glaciers, as the bay is now a long fjord. A fjord is a valley that was carved by a glacier, but filled in with water after the glacier had melted. More than 1,000 smaller glaciers can be found in Glacier Bay National Park today. All of these smaller glaciers were once part of the huge glacier that covered Glacier Bay 250 years ago. In this map, the numbers and lines indicate where the snouts of the glaciers were in the particular year. Here's the maximum extent of the glacier in the late 1700s. Grand Pacific Glacier is the main glacier credited with carving out Glacier Bay. By 1925, it had melted back by about 60 miles to the head of what is now Tar Inlet. By witnessing geologic processes and changes, usually barely noticed in the span of a human lifetime, This quote from Mark Twain is very apt indeed. There are several public places to view the glaciers on Crown Princess. This is deck 16 at the front of the ship, but it's very windy and cold here when the ship is making its journey towards the upper bay. The front of the ship on deck 8 is one of the best places to view the glaciers, as you can get from one side of the ship to the other, and you're more at eye level to the glacier. Of course, there are also the open decks at deck 15 to 17. Currently, glaciers cover about 27% of the park. There are over 1,000 glaciers in Glacier Bay, with over 50 named glaciers, 7 of which are active tidewater glaciers that calve icebergs into the sea. As we are moving up the bay, the scenery is spectacular. This is Margerie Glacier. It's about 0.85 mile wide, and its total height is about 350 feet, of which 250 feet is above the waterline and 100 feet is beneath the water level. The glacier is about 21 miles long. The ice flows about 3 to 7 feet per day. Glaciers can break away or calve from above and below the waterline. Underwater tongues of ice can also break off and shoot to the surface. Approaching tidewater glaciers closer than a quarter mile is not recommended. We saw a couple of calvings. Here's one of them. And here's the other one. Where the ocean is disturbed by meltwater streams and calving icebergs, flocks of black-legged kittiwake gulls swarm and glean small marine creatures from the surface. Otters are aplenty. When light hit highly compacted glacier ice, longer wavelength colors like the reds are absorbed, while the short energetic wavelength colors like blues are reflected from the ice. The effect is greatest with deep basal ice, that is ice close to the base of a glacier. Basal ice is bubble-free and has large crystals. The blue color therefore tends to be most intense in the course of calved icebergs or fresh fractures. Rough, weathered ice and fresh snow will appear white because preferential absorption does not occur. Grand Pacific Glacier is right next to Margerie Glacier. Its flow rate is approximately half a foot to 1 foot per day. Grand Pacific is now grounded and its terminus is no longer tidewater. Grand Pacific Glacier is the main glacier credited with carving out Glacier Bay. It joined the edge of Margerie Glacier around 1992, but the Grand Pacific has since retreated, and these glaciers are no longer joined. As the glaciers moved down the mountains, they removed a huge amount of rock and dirt from nearby mountain sides, causing an accumulation of dirt and rock on the glacier's surface. Also, the diminishing size of the glacier consolidates the rocks, so the glacier looks more like land than ice. Next is Lamplugh Glacier. Its flow rate is approximately 3/4 to 1 foot per day. The terminus is now grounded, and only at high tides does salt water reach the ice face. Here's a comparison of Lamplugh Glacier in 1941 versus 2003. We also passed by Reid Glacier. Reid Glacier shares a large ice field with Lamplugh Glacier and Margerie Glacier. On our way back to Icy Strait, we saw some sea lions resting on some rocks in the far distance. The pilots and park rangers are disembarking from our ship as we get close to Icy Strait. They had boarded our ship at around 6 this morning to set up the ranger station, and you can ask them questions about the national park.
I'm just here to spend the night. This is short to stay alone. This is too short to stay alone.
Glacier Bay is beautiful, and it takes us through a tiny insignificant fraction of geologic time. I hope you had enjoyed this video, and I wish everyone visiting Glacier Bay a safe journey.